Upgrade to Faded Spade and get 15% off the new face of cards with code PODCAST at fadedspade.com.
Welcome to the Faded Spade Podcast with your hosts, Tom Wheaton and Sean McCormack.
All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to the Faded Spade Podcast. My name is Tom Wheaton, founder and CEO of Faded Spade, with a co-host, the poker boss, Sean McCormack, and we are bringing you the last episode of the season and the year with a special guest. I feel like it's a great guest to end the season with and the year with, Mr. Phil Hellmuth. So, Sean, you've known Phil for a while. What do you think about having him as a guest on the Faded Spade Podcast to talk about his entrepreneurial and business journey instead of the poker stuff?
I mean, obviously, I've known Phil for a very long time, but that doesn't mean that I still don't like nerd out on having him as one of our guests. That's pretty awesome. I mean, there's always going to be these top 5 guys you always talk about in poker, and Phil is always in the conversation. Clearly, most bracelets all time, probably most no limit hold'em wins in tournaments all the time. But he's, it's pretty cool. I hope people get to see the other side of Phil Hellmuth, and I know he gets a lot of flack, the poker brat, stuff like that, his persona. But he really is, he's one of those guys that would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. And it's really cool that for our first season, we have such a large guest to cap it off. So yeah, it was really cool to have him.
Hey, man, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. And I'm just getting to know Phil. I don't know him that well, but all my interactions with him, he's been nothing but genuine. And I actually ordered #positivity book and read it just to prepare for our interview, right? And you kind of get to know him a little bit more than what people might see on TV, right? Or live streams. And the way I look at it is this. When Michael Jordan is on the court, right? When Tiger Woods is on the fairway in the green, right? You're a Boston guy. When Roger Clemens was on the mound, the way they are in those competitive situations, they're fierce competitors. And the way they are in those environments is not necessarily how they are outside of competition, right? Correct. And the Phil Hellmuth on the felt versus off the felt, I'm starting to understand is a much different person than people really think, right? And I say those names and people might smirk, but I mean, come on. Who's the Tiger Woods of poker? Who's the Roger Clemens of poker? Who's, right? I mean, it's got to be Phil. It's got to be Phil Hellmuth. So, I think people should probably differentiate that the Phil Hellmuth, while he's in his competitive game, is much different than the Phil Hellmuth who lives his life, I think.
And let me touch on that. Poker players, we have to understand as a whole in our industry that poker players are more obtainable. And what I mean by that is you can see them in real life. You can pony up 10K and play in the same tournament. You can pony up some cash and play in the same cash game. We can't play with Roger Clemens, Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. We can't play with these guys. So we only see their on-screen or on TV persona, and no one really knows what they're like in real life. So, I implore people, especially with a guy like Phil, if you get a chance and you could just talk to him even for like 10 seconds, walk up and say, hey, Mr. Hellmuth, whatever, big fan or not a big fan. Okay, don't do that. But, we get to see into these people's real lives where most people, the general public, don't get to see into the lives of these huge name actors or sports stars or celebrities in certain ways. And I'll tell you, from being in the casino business for so long, especially at 2 of Las Vegas's most high-profile casinos, I've had the privilege, and sometimes it doesn't feel like a privilege, to see the other side of these people that you don't get to see, the Michael Jordans of the world, the Tiger Woods of the world. And I'm not talking bad about those two guys. They're both actually really nice guys. But But there are some you'd just be super surprised.
Right.
Like their on-screen persona is very different than their real life one, you know. And I won't badmouth anybody, of course, because there's no upside to that. But I will say with Phil that poker brat isn't the real guy. There is more to the meat and potatoes there.
And what's so cool is that during this interview that's about to come up, you know, people will get a glimpse at that, right? And if you read #positivity, people will get a glimpse of that. But get ready. This is the untold entrepreneurial and business story of the one and only Phil Hellmuth. I hope you guys enjoy the experience as much as Sean did. And we'll catch you on the flip side after our time with Phil. All right, ladies and gents, welcome to the next episode of the Faded Spade Podcast. My name is Tom Wheaton, founder and CEO of Faded Spade, with our co-host, the poker boss, Sean McCormack, and our next guest on the season-ending episode, the greatest poker tournament player to ever play the game. I'll just say it. It is not arguably. I'll say it. 15-time World Series of Poker Bracelet champion, the oh-so-close multiple World Poker Tour champion, which I know is really important to you, Phil. $25 million in recorded tournament earnings, but we are not here to talk about the poker story of our next guest. We are here to talk about the untold entrepreneurial and business story of the best-selling author, the personal brand creator, the business owner, investor, advisor, the one and only Phil Hellmuth. Welcome to the Faded Spade Podcast, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks very much. I got to tell you, I ordered it this weekend. I already read about 80% of it this morning.
I mean, the beautiful thing about Positivity is it's 70 minutes to read.
Yeah. It was
and I've been getting incredible. I mean, it's really cool. I sent it to Sheryl Sandberg, you know, the CEO of Facebook. In the business world, everybody knows who she is. Not all the poker players do. Yeah. Sent it to Tony Robbins. Most people know who he is, and they both love the book. And Tony Robbins tells people to buy my book, Positivity, in his classes. And I'm just like, you know, this incredible, you know, because you write something, you believe it, you know it's truth, or you think it's truth. And, you know, I wrote a book called Play Poker Like the Pros that I felt was all truth. And that became a New York Times bestseller. This can't be because it's only on Amazon. Right. But I'm starting to sell thousands of copies. I really think I'm going to sell 1 million copies, because when something's full of truth, then it spreads and people buy it. So I'm really proud of that book. It's pretty cool to have Sheryl Sandberg. She just went crazy after she read it. And so, I mean, it's just so simple. 8 life tips that I think can help anybody.
I can vouch for it. I'm ready to build my pyramid. And I can also vouch for Play Poker Like the Pros. That was the first poker book that I ever read. Phil, you know, my first strategy video was Masters of Poker, the tournament edition. And, you know, I think you know the purpose of the Faded Spade Podcast, Phil. This is to tell your business and entrepreneurial story. So let's get into it, man. So take us back. Let's start at the beginning, Phil. Why don't you let people know where you're from and like kind of what your roots are?
Well, I think you know, the beginning for me starts, you know, after I won the main event, you know, which was, you know, in 1989. I was 24 years old. And if you want to go back even further, you know, I came from Madison, Wisconsin. And, you know, I came from a family of 5. I'm the oldest. And, you know, I think that I struggled with my, let me see, ego's not the right word. I didn't really have, my self-esteem was a little bit low because of the 5 kids. I had the worst grades. Mm-hmm. I was the worst athlete. And you know, and to my father has a PhD, a JD, and MBA. And so grades were everything. And so my self-esteem took a hit early in life. I didn't have what a lot of, you know, bad cases have, getting beat up or having like some really bad stuff happen to me, but just enough to my self-esteem take a little ding. And then fast forward to, I found poker, and in 1989 at age 24, I won the main event. So you take somebody with low self-esteem and you say, hey, you're the greatest. You know, you win the main event. And I was winning a lot of tournaments, not just the main event back then. And I think it's a volatile mix, right? And most people in that position, low self-esteem does great things. And, you know, and then in 93, I won 3 bracelets in 1 year. And all of a sudden I realized I could be the all-time great, and established as a goal in a second. And, and so I just to kind of the trajectory of, but I didn't go crazy. I mean, my ego went crazy, but luckily for me, I didn't head towards, drugs. I didn't head towards becoming an alcoholic, instead, probably I lost too much money back at times, and that was kind of, my thing. I luckily I found the right woman early. I didn't cheat on my wife. A lot of people that have those messed up ego things, they do one of those three things: drugs, too much alcohol, or cheating on their wife. I was able to avoid that, but still was probably not easy to be around in 1993, 1994, as I kind of figured it out. And, around 1997, I decided I loved my wife and kids. I knew that, but I decided that I had to be with them.
Yeah.
And so I decided, all right, listen, you're going to switch towards business. Yeah. So about 1998, I started writing columns for Card Player magazine. I started looking for business opportunities in Palo Alto.
Okay. So this was an intentional decision. You said, I need to get, not away from poker, but diversify into this realm of business.
Correct. I mean, as a professional poker player, I saw that the richest poker players in the world maybe had a couple $1 million by then. Yeah. There were only 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. And
they were mostly, high stakes cash game players. So my choices were, all right, you're capped at being worth, a couple $1 million, maybe 5 or 10 million, or business is much easier. And you have people that just really weren't that sharp, that are already worth 10, 20, 30, 40, $100 million. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, all right, so, yes, you want to be the greatest poker player of all time, but to make money, to make real money, to make a couple $100 million. And back then, you think of millions a lot, or 10 millions a lot. In order to make that kind of money, I'm going to have to do it through business. Yep. Because poker is a zero-sum game.
Right. I think that's a good point. So you talk about self-esteem, right? And you talk about how you kind of overcame that during that period in your life. So what advice would you have for people who might be right now in a similar situation that you were in terms of pulling themselves out of that, or kind of retraining their mind to bring that self-esteem to the forefront?
I did a talk for in front of a bunch of company founders that have been really successful.
Really?
And I shaped my talk. I spoke right after, I spoke right after Larry, who's the dean at Harvard, and and was in Obama's office every day helping him sort the economy out. I'm really bad with last names. And he ended up golfing the next day, which was pretty cool. Larry Summers. And I thought, man, I'm gonna have to speak after him. And I kind of designed my speech for how to deal with ego, how to deal with sudden fame and sudden success. You go from being someone in the room who's, normal, to someone in the room who someone's tagging your sleeve. They want this, they want that, because you become super successful. Right. You have money. So now you have people looking for you for all kinds of reasons for that. You have success. People want to share in that or be a part of that, and so, you have business acumen and people want to learn from you. And so, that was one of my best speeches, kind of off the cuff. And afterwards they all rose up, it was like the biggest response I'd ever had with a speech. I just laid it all out on the line, how hard it is. And so, you ask a really good question. And I mean, it's a tough transition. I mean, the one thing that I've found is something from my own book, Positivity. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling, way too cocky when I was down in Brazil. The head of the whole country, the underground head of Brazil, who's the head of Brazil, kind of, got to me within one day as a fan of mine, 80 years old. And he had a bulletproof car for me every time I left the hotel. Wow. And I was just like, wow, what is going on? And so my ego's flaring, because I'm like, oh my God, I've been in, Rio for 24 hours. And we went to the finale, for the carnival down there. And we find ourselves within a couple of hours in the VIP booth with all the rappers and movie stars. And it was just crazy, just the level I was getting treated. And so I was getting too cocky, and my wife's like, this is bad, honey, too cocky. And, and so, I mean, the best thing that I could do is I took my own advice. I wrote down on my bathroom mirror what was really important. And you don't, and when you do that, you find that it's not really important that, you know, that you're treated like a king. That's not really important. It's a great movie. Mm-hmm. And my movie's amazing, right? That all the Brazilian players line up for autographs and pictures with me, and like, you know, and just can't believe I'm there, and they're all going crazy, and the press is, all that's a great movie, but that doesn't mean anything, you know. And if you buy into that stuff, and I bought into it many times for many decades, and you just become too cocky. And so, you know, what did I do? I made sure that on my bathroom mirror was my list of blessings, one of my life tips from Positivity. And guess what's at the top of that list? Health.
Health, yeah.
And guess what's number 2? My wife and my kids, you know, and their health. So there's 3 points, boom, boom, boom. How is that stuff doing? You know what I mean? Oh, wow, I'm thankful I have great health. I'm thankful I have the right wife for 29 years. I'm thankful that I have, you know, great kids. And then so you kind of go from this focusing on the movie, and, you know, all right, the 4th thing on my list, or my 3rd thing on my list, I think it's 4th, is, you know, 15 world championships. Well, I'm not, you know, and then maybe somewhere on the list is a New York Times bestselling book. Well, I'm not doing anything to further any of that. So what am I really, why is my ego out of control when the top 5 things on my list aren't even affected today?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so then to kind of focus on that and see that, you know, 5 times a day when you brush your teeth, when you get up in the morning, when I'd go to the mirror to see that it's about health and family, you know, and then, you know, and bracelets. And there's nothing I can do about bracelets in Rio. There's no bracelets down there. So, you know, that kind of brings you back. And so to company founders and people that are really struggling with the concept of ego, write down a list of blessings, tape it on your bathroom mirror, and look at that every day.
I'm going to do it tonight. That's going to be call to action number 1 from the book. So I think that's great advice, Phil. And, you know, one thing that, you know, I was wondering too, I know a lot of people watching this you've experienced at that time, we'll go back to when you first intentionally started wanting to get into business, right? So you've experienced poker success. You are experiencing some fame, right? You're becoming a notable person outside of the poker industry. You're becoming well known. At what point did you say, and maybe it was happenstance, but did you say, I'm going to build this PH personal brand? Was that intentional business decision? Okay. So tell us about that.
Well, part of the intent of that is let's scroll down here on my picture and show, I want to show the folks the full Phil Hellmuth logo. So
let's do it.
At the same time as I was getting involved with the site, and unfortunately the site caused some stains on some people's reputation, and I got lucky. But when we started Ultimate Bet, I thought, wow, this is going to be worth hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and I'm going to make a lot of money. Well, we did go public for about $380 million, which was kind of nice. Let's cut to this logo.
Yep. There it is. There it is.
So I was starting my own clothing company thinking that if poker got really hot, 2 things I was doing. One, I realized that writing a New York Times bestseller was on my lifetime list. And so I thought, wow, poker's about to just go crazy. You know, and so ahead of the wave, I wrote my book, Play Poker Like the Pros.
Yep.
Now I got lucky. You know, somebody held it up on television and said, hey, you know, somebody held it up on television and said, I had never played 7-card low before, and I just cashed for $24,000 or whatever. And then, boom, ESPN showed that New York Times bestseller list.
Wow.
I get a phone call. I'll never forget the day, because when you hit a lifetime goal, it means something. I felt like I was high for a week. I was at the Lowe's Hotel in Santa Monica, and I get a call on my cell phone. I'm like, who is this? And they're like, hey, it's HarperCollins. Your book just hit the New York Times bestseller list. And I'm like, yes, lifetime goal. And they said, we sent a bottle of, which hotel are you at? I said, I'm staying at the Lowe's Hotel. They called me back 5 minutes later, or I think right on the phone, they said, we just sent a bottle of Dom Perignon to your room. Oh, wow. Congratulations. And I was like, yes. Because I wrote Play Poker Like the Pros to be a New York, actually, I didn't even write it to be a New York Times bestseller. I thought my autobiography, hold on.
Uh-oh. The P in Phil Hellmuth stands for promoter.
Promote.
There you go.
I thought my autobiography, Poker Brat, would be a New York Times bestseller. And I didn't think it would be this book that I threw out in front of the wave, but I got lucky.
Yeah.
And this is the book you were talking about, Positivity,
Yep.
which 8 life tips. I believe I'm going to help millions of people think bigger and do more. What did you think? You loved the book?
I loved it. It was a quick read. I've got 10 more pages to go. I only stopped to get ready for this.
It's truth, right? I mean, to me, it's truth. If
Yeah.
you look at it and you say, wow, these are things that I can use or that make sense to me.
Well, I've been saying, why haven't I done these things already? Sure, I've got them in notebooks here and I've got them in my head, but why haven't I done this yet? And it's what I like about it is you have calls to action at the end of each chapter where it's like, good, listen and hear what I just read, but now go do this. And I think one of the things that really appealed to me, which we've talked about on our podcast before, and maybe this dovetails into the next question, is one thing that I struggled with before I started Faded Spade, was just taking the first step and doing some sort of action. It was an idea for so long, but it took so long just to go for it. And one of the things that resonated with me in #positivity was you even said, like, you've got to take movement, like do some sort of action, take that step, right? So when you were just starting out in business.
So that's one of my favorite chapters. Let me comment on that and just say, the book is Positivity. You are always in the right place at the right time. Yeah. Well, the really big businessmen in life understand that concept. Yeah. And I think only 10% of the world understands that they're always in the right place at the right time. And so the way I prove it is this, and I'm just kind of going verbatim. Here's another chapter from my book. The second life tip, you're always in the right place at the right time. You have a guy, 2 guys in houses next door. They both have 3 kids, blah, blah, blah. And one comes up with, 8 reasons why this is the most amazing bar he's ever seen. His lifetime dream is to open a sports bar. Right. Then he says, Martha, please pass the peas. That means he's done with the idea. Yep. Martha, please pass the peas. So he laid out this, and my friend Carl Westcott talks about the Martha, please pass the peas. I got that part from him. There's so many people out there with so many great ideas that don't do them because they have the idea, but they don't pursue it. The guy next door, same exact thing to his wife and kids, right? But the difference is on the way home from work that next day, he stops by his favorite sports bar. That's it. Yeah. They're both in the right place at the right time, but this guy's opened the door, both the physical door, and he's opened an imaginary door where you can see behind that door what could happen. He could end up taking over that bar. He could end up getting all this great advice and having the owner of that bar be flattered and say, wow, I'll help you raise money, or I'll put in my own money. So many great things happen once you open that door. What's the difference? They both had dreams. They both had great plans. One guy, all he did is spend 20 minutes going out of his way to stop into his favorite sports bar. He took action.
Yep. Amen. I love it. And I think that's great advice for any entrepreneur or business person out there. If fear is holding you back or whatever is holding you back, just take some kind of step. Even if you don't know what direction to head, take a step, make a decision, because you never know where that might lead.
Hashtag pursue your dream.
There it is. There it is. So love that, Phil. Okay. So you're a best-selling author. You've got your personal brand. What next? Because it seems like at that point, did you go directly to trying to get into product promoting or investing or consulting? Like, what happened in your next phase of your business journey?
Well, I was looking for more and more business opportunities. I bought a piece of Card Player magazine.
Okay.
I paid like $900,000 for 3 points in Card Player. And then also I bought a piece because now I'm looking at, at businesses within the industry, right? Because I knew that the guys surrounding poker were making a lot of money, right? Mm-hmm. And the guys surrounding poker not only make a lot of money, they're also listed as sometimes the most powerful. Yeah. My agent, Brian Balsbo, is always listed as one of the top 5 most powerful people in poker. He's not a poker player. And so, it doesn't take, so I invested in Card Player magazine. We were talking about going public for a couple $100 million. That would have been really nice. I also bought a place of Card Player towers. Mm-hmm. So that was a really smart move where I think they let me buy, what did we do? We built a building for $5 million. And so they sold it at $50,000 a point. And the concept was buy 3 points for $150,000 and we'll put the rent will be X, and we'll put whatever, $1,000 or $1,500 into your account every month. I think it was 1,500 or 2,000, 1,500 maybe for, you know, the rest of your life. And I was like, that sounds smart. I'll put in 150. I'll make whatever it is, 18,000 a year forever, you know, just to get some money coming in on a normal, regular basis.
Right.
Then I started looking for, you know, other business opportunities that existed within poker. I looked at a lot of different stuff. I invested in one of Phil Gordon's companies, which, you know, he was ahead of his time with this one. I mean, he had the idea. It's now Cameo, it's called, and Cameo's taking off. Mm-hmm. And I'm probably going to join Cameo soon. That's where you pay like $100 to have a celebrity, or, you know, some people charge $500, some people charge $20, and you can have a 10 to 20 second message, personalized message. Right. And Cameo's just taking off. They just raised $50 million. Well, Phil Gordon's idea was to do that, except with voicemails. And so he was a little bit ahead of his time on this one, 7 or 8 years. That one didn't work, but so I just kept putting money in funds and in opportunities. You know, I put money in Chamath Palihapitiya, who's my best friend. I put money into his fund. You know, my regular poker game's filled with, you know, 8 of the biggest businessmen in the world. Right. And so I'm hearing them talk all the time. And so, you know, and then all of a sudden this thing kind of came, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. In 2015, I was approached by Deck of Dice about, you know, being on their advisory board. And so that was my first officially, I'm on 8 company advisory boards now, but I joined that advisory board early. I brought them to one meeting with my superstar friend, Bill Lee. And Bill Lee just happened to be the perfect guy on the planet to bring those guys to a meeting to, because Bill Lee had been with Big Fish Gaming, and he looked at their games and he said, man, these are nothing special. What are you doing? I see 100 of these a week. And so they pivoted their company in one night, Deck of Dice. Wow. And now if you look in social casinos, we have a game that is just crushing it. You look at all these social casinos, Hard Rock, and then you'll see Deck of Dice is just, it's called Liar's Poker, basically. Yeah. Which is exactly what Bill Lee said to do. He said, hey, turn it into a Liar's Poker game. Yeah. And so now you can, so it's amazing to me, the retention numbers are some of the best in history. And Deck of Dice is just, well, I feel like, wow, I really helped them a lot. Why? Through one meeting with somebody powerful.
Wow.
You know, I've joined 7 or 8 advisory boards. I meant to write them all down. I hope I can hit some of them as we go.
Of course.
I was talking to the CEO of Lasso Gear. It's the first healthwear company in the world. Yeah. And we have compression socks that fit all the way up to your knees, but they're the tightest compression socks I've ever seen. Well, James Harden wears our compression socks and every time he plays.
That's great.
Unadvertised. We're not paying him any money. He wears them. So, I mean, that's a pretty good sign. We have a bunch of NFL stars that are wearing them now. When you're wearing our compression socks, there's a 70% less chance of turning an ankle. Gotcha. And they're great for flying. So we're talking to the U.S. military about selling them 150,000 pairs for the troops to put on when they're flying, because compression socks are, you know, are really good for that as well. So watching Lasso just take off. And I've contributed. The CEO calls me up personally and says, Phil, this is, you know, I mean, you're the only one I talk to on the whole planet, Partha. You're the only one I talk to about business stuff, and it's been fun for me. And, you know, and so it's just kind of fun because I'm in all these different industries now. I've had to learn all of these different things about all these different industries, so that when I do run into, I joined another one, and this one I have to hit. Yeah. Because I guarantee you're going to save money. It's travelsmarter.com. Although we're changing the name. We have 4,000 people on the site that are paying $10 a month so far. We're going like this. So travelsmarter.com, you pay $10. We have inventory for 750,000 hotels around the world. But this is not, so every other, you imagine there's all these sites, like, I don't know, name one, Kayak, all these, right. There's 7 different sites where the prices are all jacked up.
Right.
They're all jacked up. It's like they're colluding against the public.
Right.
So this guy's like, all right, listen, how do I get these prices direct to consumer? Right. So I will tell you, I'm coming to Minneapolis, okay, for Christmas. I booked a room. You can't make this stuff up. I went to travelsmarter.com. I logged in. I said Minneapolis from these dates to this dates. And then all the hotels pop up with the rate, not some daily confusing rate, not some fee thing. This is what you pay. $1,500 and whatever, $1,650. That was for 5 nights for 3 rooms at the W Hotel. 5 nights, 3 rooms at the W Hotel for like $1,600. It's less than $100 a night.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Every other site you go to will show you a rate of $150, $200, $300. And so Travel Smarter does it for airlines and hotels, and every single person that's joined this site has thanked me later. Because it's the nuts. And, you know, how can you get those rates? Well, you have to be a members only site. And so, you know, we're up to 4,000, but we're growing at $100, $200, $300, 300 customers, and it's just taking off because, so, you know, if you're in Thailand, I mean, they'll quote you $1,000 a night for these rooms. You get them at our site for $150. You know, if you want to go on travel, but it's not just hotels and air. It's also all these. It's just an incredible site, and with the site we own Earth and Pix, I think it is, and so we're crushing. You know, we're crushing on a couple of different levels with, you know, with history and Earth history and I'm getting everything wrong here.
It's all
but
good.
I just want to say, TravelSmarter.com. I've saved a fortune. I want to say one more thing. I went to Miami.
Yep.
5 nights. JW Marriott. I'm not making this up. $757.
Yep.
How can you stay at a jumbo? Every time I book a room there, it's $300 a night.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I hit the book button, boom, I was there. And I went down there for the NASCAR race. And so, you know, some of these sites, I'm just using the products all the time. And this one fires me up.
And that's what I'm noticing right now is like what I'm hearing, and then everyone watching or listening is hearing, is just the passion you have for the businesses that you're advising, right? And I kind of believe, like, in my opinion, I don't know this for sure, but I think because of the intentionality you put in terms of building your personal brand outside of being one of the greatest poker tournament players in the world, you put intentionality about building your personal brand, which then built your credibility, right? And then other companies come at you to talk about these types of things because now you have a following. So take me back to that time when you were building your personal brand. For others who maybe have some type of influence and want to kind of build their brand, so maybe in the future they could have advisory roles, what advice would you give those types of people?
Well, I knew I was getting a ton of television time. So we I'll show you, we created the logo. This is the full logo. So this is on 1 million books I've sold and 1 million, whatever, 500,000 DVD, whatever we've sold.
Yep.
This is on everything I do. Now, if you look closely, you'll see the PH in there.
Yep.
And if you look closely, you'll see kind of like the chip logo. So for the hat, the back of the hat, we took out, oh, yeah, there it is. Can you see that?
Got it. Yep. Yep.
So the back of the hat just has the chip logo. That's what I call it.
Yep.
And then a lot of times I'm wearing just a PH on the front of my hats.
Yep. So
which you've probably seen 100 times.
So you created this brand identity. That seems to be the first step. You created a brand identity. How did you then get the brand out there? Like, how did you make sure the masses, you know?
Well, that was the easy part, right?
Yeah.
The easy part was, you know, I insisted on my full logo being on my book. I didn't know it was going to be a New York Times bestseller. I didn't know we'd sell 700,000 or 800,000 iterations of that book, or 1 million, whatever we've sold. I didn't know that, but I slapped the logo on there. Also on television, at that point, I had 2 brands I was representing, you know, Ultimate Bet and PH, just me. So a lot of times they wouldn't let me wear my UB hat for whatever reason. So I always had the PH hat on.
Yep.
And, you know, later when I went to Aria, hi, Sean.
The poker boss.
Later when I went to Aria, you know, I still remember when I was brought in, you know, it was a pretty cool moment. Bill Macbeth,
yep.
You know, it was just around the time where poker players, we still weren't getting free hotel rooms. All right. If you could be the biggest name in the world in poker, you weren't getting a free hotel room unless you gambled.
Right.
So I was a little frustrated. I'm like, what is this? Really? I mean, I walk in this casino, I take all the pictures, I do all the autographs, and then they give me nothing.
Right.
And so the Golden Nugget was the first one that stepped up. They gave me this beautiful 2-story suite, you know, glass, complete glass where you're looking out over the swimming pool. Those 2-story suites at the Nugget are pretty cool. And then Macbeth and I started palling around a little bit with, A-Rod, the baseball player. And he's like, hey, so he's like, hey, Phil, we'd like you. We're drinking one night at the Aria, just open. He's like, Phil, we would like you to stay here at the Aria.
Oh, there you go.
And I said, well, and we'd like you to MC some of our events. And I said, well, I charge $25,000 to MC events. This was back in 08 or 09, and now I'm at $50,000 to MC events. But a lot of times, if it's a charity event, I'll do it for 25 or sometimes free. But I won't do events. I feel really good about the charity stuff. People have attacked me because I've gone public telling them what I do for charities. I've raised $58 million for charities. I've probably charged $1 million, but I've donated $1.5 million of my own money to charities. Right. So I'm still down $500,000, but people don't want to put that together. They only want to get caught in the fact that I charge.
Right. But
they forget that almost every event I do picks up $1 million. But anyway, that's a segue. I'm proud of my charity work.
It's all about return on investment, and they get it with you. So
yeah, I'm not unlimited. But anyway, to go back to the emceeing, I had done one at the Mirage. I'd left a kind of a nice impression there. And Bill's like, hey, I want you here. We're drinking, and he pulls me upstairs, Sean, to one of those 37 rooms, the end of the hallway. The wraparound
I haven't seen those
suites.
yet. Haven't seen those yet, Phil. Next time I'm in town.
You stay in a 37 room, so it could be 2837, it could be 5837, but it's all the same wraparound suite with a circular bubble, and it's just huge, beautiful, but nice suite, but not out of control huge either. And he's like, hey, Phil, how would you like this? And he's like, yeah, we'll pay you. And so, boom, I entered an agreement with the Aria, and I've never left. And then, when Macbeth left, Bobby took over, and Bobby's like, I'd like to get this on paper. Yeah. So then we papered the deal. And then Aria, I think they got rid of like all the other poker players. I was the first one there. And then they brought in 4 or 5 for a minute. And then they got rid of everybody. They kept me on. I know that they've told me they want to re-sign me next year as well.
Great.
I love staying at the Aria. And when they said, hey, Phil, we want you to stay here again this year. All right. And I took a huge pay cut. I'm like, all right, I can go to the Win and ask for $20,000 a month, but I'm an Aria guy. I love it. So we took the pay cut, and then next year we're gonna get our pay restored a little bit. But I had the Aria logo all over Keeping Up with the Kardashians, like December 5th last year.
Yep.
Phil, I think I asked for a raise. I think that's what happened to your contract.
Well, I think what's really important about this part of the discussion too is it all starts with brand, right? Whether it's the brand of the Aria or the PH brand or the Poker Brat brand or the brand of Faded Spade. One thing you said was you insisted that your brand was promoted and placed in certain types of communication vehicles, right? Because your products can change, your services can change, but your brand, as long as it has high equity, it doesn't matter what products or services you get into, people will trust the brand. Would you agree with that,
Yeah,
Phil?
and I told, this is an interesting thing. When it comes to doing the ESPN commentary, basically I thought to myself, I would do this for free. Yeah. When it came to they put my likeness and image and likeness on 12 million beer cans in 2008.
Oh, wow.
That's one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me.
What beer
I was
can?
on Milwaukee's best beer cans all over the country on 12 million cans and all the packaging.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that was a weird deal because what was I paid? I was paid like $75,000 and my check came from the World Series of Poker. Not from Miller. I'm from Wisconsin, man. Miller. So finally, I thought, and so I realized that, all right, obviously the World Series of Poker is getting paid. I think I was getting $75,000. Maybe they were getting paid $500,000 or $1 million for me and the World Series of Poker brand. Fine. I thought, when you think you have an alcohol deal, finally you're like, yes, I'm going to make real money. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I would have done the beer can for free. I would have done the ESPN commentary for free. Now I'm in a position where I'm getting paid for that. And, and when it comes to alcohols, I'm on Kemosabe
Mezcal. Yep.
Which is another brand that I, on the side of my hat that I absolutely love. And and Mezcal is really hot, and it's kind of fun to watch another brand I'm involved with just take off.
So tell us
but
that
I
story.
helped them a lot. I got them into the ARIA.
Okay.
And then they got into MGM, and now I think we're in 30 countries, 30 states, or maybe 40 states by now.
So tell us that story. Are these companies coming to you, or are you intentionally seeking out certain companies that you're passionate about, or is it a combo of each?
It's kind of, when you're on an advisory board, the concept is, to either help them raise money or help them with business ideas. And so somebody came to me recently and they said, "Hey, Phil, we want you involved." And I said, "Listen, I've helped 30 companies in a row, whether it's been companies that, that I've been associated with, companies that have hired me to represent them. And every time it's been a great interaction. I'm really happy, but my schedule's full. And if you want me as an advisory board member, I can give you about 10 hours a year. But I can tell you this, that every single person, every CEO that's dealt with me, every single one, maybe it's 30 by now, they've all been super happy with my participation because they expect this much. And I promise this much, but they always get this much.
That's great.
And so, the way I pivoted the whole company deck of dice in one meeting, they were heading one direction, which was not going to work. Boom, they had another direction, which is amazing and works. And if you ask the CEO, Tom Donilon, he'll tell you, wow, Phil single-handedly helped our company a ton. Yeah. What do I have in that company? Maybe 2%.
Yeah. And
so the power of me being on board is being in the right place at the right time, and having read the script of where the company is going to be, then understanding that, wow, here comes an opportunity. So TravelSmarter.com is a good example because this came up 2 weeks ago. I begged the CEO to put in $200,000, begged him. He said no, he only took $100 from me.
Okay.
Fine, whatever. I could see this was just a stone cold winner. And, Jeff Gross, Jeff Gross and I are involved in 10 companies together, I think it is now, where we both have investments. And so JG and I, he loved it. And so I begged to get in more money. I still remember in Brazil saying, "Please let me put in 200,000. No, Phil, 100. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. So let's come to the point. The point is this. I was on a private flight from Miami back to the Bay Area. And one of the guys on the jet, his jet, turned out to be the #1 VC in the world in the travel space.
Wow.
So I called my CEO at TravelSmarter and said, "Hey, I'm going to be flying with such and such and another friend, just 3 of us on the jet. We're probably going to play some high stakes poker, but now's a good time for me to tell him about our company. What do you want me to do?" He's like, "You're right. That's the #1 guy in the world for us. And just make him, just kind of let him know we exist. We're not ready to raise yet. But a few facts, we're going to be profitable in 2020 in June and whatever." So, that was a really cool thing to be able to bring. And the CEO was thrilled.
That's
thrilled
great.
Because I put him in front of the #1 guy in the world. And so that's the kind of thing that happens. I was given 2% of a channel that didn't make it. There was going to be a games channel. They were ahead of their time. It was going to be hearts, spades, poker, backgammon, any game you could think of. Great idea, but just a little bit ahead of his time. They wanted a network channel. This was, now would be easier for him to do it. He could go to Amazon or 10 other places, but, but anyway, we were doing a network channel and the final meeting came and Paul Allen's guy from Vulcan, the head guy, was in the room and I was in the room in LA. And he came in, the founder, Reagan Silber, and he said, "Hey, Phil, what do you think?" And I said, "You need to raise $81 million. And I said, "The last guy that looks at that paper might see my name and might put the money in because my name's on that list." He said, "That's exactly what I see. You're hired." So that he gave me 2%. He gave Toby Maguire 2%.
Beautiful.
And so it was really kind of an amazing thing. Well, fast forward about a year later, I was in Denver with my sister, and they said, "Hey, Charlie Ergen, who's, I think Dish Network billionaire.
Yep.
It might not be Dish. I might be messing up, but Charlie, wants to meet you. And so they set a meeting up for 10 a.m. Monday, and I walk into the boss of the Dish Networks. And you know what? So Reagan flies in from LA to walk into the meeting with me. I shake Charlie's hand. His wife and his son appear out of nowhere, and I'm talking to them. And Reagan gets to pitch him for an hour about his network. And he's like, he got on the plane. I happened to fly back to LA with him to play poker. And he's like, Phil, you just earned 20%. Thank you. Wow. And so that's where I provide value is getting people into meetings they don't understand. And I've been told by a lot of the young CEOs that they like my business advice, even though I haven't technically run a business. I've been looking at the insides of business for a long time. And so I'd like to think that I'm a powerful ally. And for me, the fun part is coming aboard a company, getting 2 or 3%, and then, watching it grow and knowing, wow, this could be worth $2 billion.
And I think a good takeaway here is, you had some influence, right? And there are a lot of people out there who are starting to have influence, but you had the confidence and the conviction to be able to say, here is my value. And you weren't afraid to ask for it. So other folks who might have a little bit of influence, and maybe they're not working with the size companies you are, right? Maybe they're working with small to medium-sized businesses like Faded Spade, right? Or Run It Once Poker, or Solve for Y Academy, or Run It Up, or you name it. But it's like, don't be afraid to ask for your value if you believe you can bring something through your influence or through a connectivity. So Poker Boss Sean, hearing all this, like, where does your mind go, man? And anything you want to kind of pick Phil's brain about?
Man,
I know. I had no idea about any of this. This is the untold story of Phil Hellmuth.
This is pretty cool for me because obviously I've known Phil for a very long time. We have kind of like a brotherhood with the Aria thing going on for both of us, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely.
Phil, before you got on, Tom was like, I'm totally going to nerd out, like being able to talk to Phil Hellmuth. And I'm like, he's just a regular guy, just like you and I.
But you got to understand, when I got into poker, Phil was the guy that I watched and studied and read. It's okay to have a little bit of that.
It's funny that you mentioned Play Poker Like the Pros, because actually that was the first book that I read as well. Yeah. And actually, I probably owe you a little bit to my poker journey myself, because that book was published in 2003. I'll never forget, because that's the year I got into poker.
How about that?
I was already playing a little bit, but I decided to try the other side, try the operation side, try to learn more about poker and stuff like that. So thanks to that book helped me make that transition from, I was in Florida where you are, and now I'm in Vegas, and took my shot and everything. And the shot went well. I took a lot from the book. I played a lot of top 10 hands just for a while. And, old
Sean, that book was meant to protect people too, because the last thing I saw, millions of people coming into the game, right? Or hope for millions of people coming into the game, and tens of millions. And I thought, wow, if they all come in and they don't know anything, they're going to lose their money quickly and they're not coming back. So let me teach. So I had to make sure that I had a rock solid beginning level book, which involves patience. And anyway, continue, Sean.
All right. So Phil, just piggybacking what Tom was talking about earlier about your own brand and getting involved with other brands and businesses. I guess my question would be, do you have a specific criteria for these businesses that you get involved with, these partnerships that you get involved with? And has that criteria changed over time? Because a lot of times when our viewers watch this, they're watching from the 1989 perspective of Phil Hellmuth, because they're only in their mid-20s or their 30s. Did you have like reservations getting into these partnerships today versus back then? Just take us through the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's like this, if I'll take a look at a company. And so Jeff Gross got me into Travel Smarter, right? And man, some other stuff too, but TravelSmarter.com, and I was like, wow, this is a hit. He told me that there might not be any room left in the round. He told me that him and his brother is, a super successful guy. His brother-in-law is a super successful guy. And, and his brother-in-law checks all the deals. And so they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. What's the maximum we can put in? This business is going to crush it. And so having Jeff Gross say this business is going to crush it, I'm like, all right, cool, I want in. And then I know that, you know, my name, because I have, you know, the Twitter followers, because I have, you know, access to so many VC firms. And my friends run the 3 or 4 biggest VC firms in the world because I have access to private individual investors and because I can help out. So something like that's a no-brainer. Let's do Travel Smarter. I'm involved with a company that's more on the cutting edge right now. And that's kind of fun. That involves, you know, we're talking about coins, okay, that now generate interest per every year, which is a very interesting thing for the coin economy. So if you have $1 million in coins, Ethereum, a specific Ethereum, you'll be getting like 10% per year. Instead of using all the energy in the world to mine coins, they've changed it to, wow, let's just give interest to people. So we have somebody who's kind of the cutting edge of that. And, you know, and that's kind of interesting for me. And I've had to do a lot of studying and work to learn. So if I think a company can make it, and if I like the founder, then it's fun for me to get involved.
That's great.
I think that's it, Sean. I mean, but you know, it's hard to have a company that you think is going to make it. And so it's been fun to be involved on, I think, the advisory board of 8 companies. So I think that's kind of the criteria. Plus, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be involved where I have to be involved every single week.
Yeah.
You know, Travel Smarter, I told the story earlier where I hadn't talked to them in 9 months, except I put out a tweet when I save a fortune, you know, which helps them a lot. And then, you know, and then what happens? Boom, I'm on the plane of the #1 guy in the world. So in that space. And so it's interesting. So that's kind of what I want to do. I don't want to be talking to the CEO and founders every single week. You know, it's something I wanted. So it has to be a very clear line in the sand. And, you know, listen, Sean, one of the criteria for me is this: during the World Series of Poker. So from, call it May 26th to July 16th, I will take no phone calls from any of the CEOs. That's understood in advance.
That's great.
Hey, listen, this is, you know, if you want me involved, I think I can help. But my weakness is time. You're not going to get much time from me. But maybe I can change the course of your company in one meeting, which I've done 3 or 4 times. The whole course, you know what I mean? And so that feels good.
That's awesome. I mean, I love that. And I'm going to write some notes on that after I rewatch this, because I think that's important for me as a founder and CEO to think about when we enter business partnerships. And something you said was great. You set expectations up front, right?
Yes, I set expectations up front, and I kind of promised this much because really, you know, I only want to work 10 hours per year on the company. And so everything's so clear from the beginning. They all understand it. I even have them write it down.
Good for you.
You know, I'm joining Clash, QLASH. You know, Clash is this. I think we just won the world championships in FIFA. One of our guys, and so Clash is this amazing esports company. You know, and with Eugene Ketchaloff. But I know that Eugene, whatever he was going to do in life, he was going to crush. So I put my money into it. I joined the advisory board, and it's just so much fun to me to watch what's happening in esports. I joined Endgame Talent Agency with Scott Ball. This is a can't miss. Scott Ball. I mean, I knew whatever he was going to do. This guy could be a C-level at Twitch right now. I think they like him a lot. They would probably love to have him there, but he's like, yeah, it's time to do my own thing.
Yeah.
You know, and I ran into him and I said, hey, what are you doing next? I ran into him at Aria and I was like, Scott, how's it going? And I'm like, that guy is a winner, man. What is he doing next? Yep. And I arranged to have dinner with him that night. I changed my schedule. And now Endgame Talent Agency has gone from like, you know, 4 million valuation to well over 50 million valuation, because big brands can come to us and they can come use our Endgame Talent Agency. Basically, we have 1,000 Twitch gamers that work for us, including some of the biggest ones in the world. If you have a brand, an alcohol brand, or you want a car brand and you want to get it between 17 and 35-year-olds, Endgame Talent Agency will come in and we will change. It's unbelievable because unfortunately the average age of the NFL watcher, I love the NFL, is like 50. The average age of the NBA, have you seen these stats? The average age of the NBA watcher is 38. They're all so much older demographics.
Wow.
But esports is catching all the young guys. So what did we do? We started Endgame Talent. Scott started Endgame Talent Agency. I came on as basically super early, and I've pulled my weight.
That's great.
If we called Scott Ball right now, he'd be like, Phil really helped us. You know, we're doing business now with you know, one of the biggest poker sites in the world. And so I helped there. But we're also doing business with mainstream brands that just want their products out in the esports world. And so, you know, that one, I give myself credit for seeing Scott Ball walking down the hall and saying, wow, I want to be, he just looks amazing. I want to do what he's doing. You know?
Sometimes it's about investing in the person, not just the business, right? And the belief in the person. And that actually brings me back to this, Phil. I know we have 15, 20 more minutes, right? But I want to bring up a few more things before we get to our last couple.
Well, let me just say this. You're right. If you ask all my billionaire friends, they say it's all about the jockey. You have the jockey and the idea.
There it is.
And my friends say it's all about the jockey because, you know, a bunch of my friends invested with a guy who was doing a video game. And the video game didn't work, but the way he communicated with his team worked. Bam, you have Slack. Slack's floating right now for like $16 billion a second. You know, and a bunch of my friends invested in Slack. That was all about the jockey, Stuart.
So I want to talk about WPT and the work you're doing with them, and then also YouStake before we get to some of the closing questions. But so recently, Phil, you know, Faded Spade were the preferred cards of the World Poker Tour. Unbelievable partners, Adam, David, Ange, Matt, you name it, the whole crew. So when did this come about for you? And the Raw Deal host, Phil Hellmuth with WPT, how has that experience been?
It's been amazing. And I must say that Adam and David, the whole crew, you know, from Adam, David, the whole crew's amazing at World Poker Tour.
They're family.
They do a great job. They really have a family atmosphere. Yeah. They made me feel part of the family right away. Yeah. And they roasted me, a private roast, which was amazing. Yeah. You know, I mean, it was brutal roasting. You know, I mean, there's a reason they don't let that stuff go public.
It was amazing.
I'm glad I get to be in attendance for some of those things.
I mean, they capped the room, and there weren't that many people there, and a bunch of my friends flew in from the Bay Area, and my friend Carl Westcott, my old friend. And so, you know, just that atmosphere was really incredible. But the World Poker Tour and the Raw Deal, I think when Tony was promoted to, you know, being, you know, to Mike Sexton left, when Tony was promoted, I think they came to me first. They thought about, all right, who do we want? And I was the first person they asked. Yep. And I jumped at the opportunity. It's another one. Don't tell them. Oh, they're going to see this. Never mind. It's another one I would do for free.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to fly to LA. I have to write. I mean, they will send me a bunch of shots, and I have to write like 6 scripts on my own. But then I'm working with who's ever editing. There's some really great people down there that they do a great job of editing, you know, and so I'll send them my version of the script. They'll almost always improve it. And then I'll come back with something, and we just have these. And then I'll put some time and effort into the script. And then when I go there, I'm really good at finishing stuff quickly. So we'll finish 8 shows in 3 hours or less. Great. And that's me. So, I mean, so it's just a lot of fun. And that is just, to me, that's a plum position in poker, the Raw Deal. To me, being the ESPN talent is a plum position in poker. Yeah. And I love doing that stuff. I love communicating with the public. I think I'm really good at it. They think I'm really good at it. But I don't take it for granted. I'm not too cocky. You know, some of my best work was, you know, at the World Series of Poker this year. Yeah. And I was a little bit kind of like sick at the time, I guess, but I nailed it. So, I mean, it's so much fun to be talking to the whole world live.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I've done that on Anderson Cooper, and you're like, man, 7 million people on Anderson Cooper. Yeah. And you're a little bit tired. You're waiting for the first question. The question's asked, and boom, you come alive. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, one of the most scary moments for me was when I was doing, this was like 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was doing the World Series of Poker stuff live, and I forgot somebody's name in the middle of my segment. And I just stumbled for a second. I said, oh my God, this is embarrassing. Knowing that there's 5 million people all over the world watching, millions of people. And that kind of impacted me. I was a little bit scared the next few years, but I covered it really quickly. And when I saw it on television, I was like, well, that wasn't so bad. I was hyper-focused the rest of the way.
Right.
And then, and so you gain a little more confidence as you go, but the live stuff is challenging and it's fun. And, I'm with Maria Ho and I'm with Daniel, and Daniel's so good at making fun of me appropriately.
Appropriately.
It's fun.
Well, Phil, I mean, sometimes it humanizes you when that kind of stuff happens, right? People get it. And so when you make mistakes and what in front of people live or whatever, it humanizes you.
The poker world knows I'm a good guy. Yeah. All right. Sean knows I'm a good guy. The whole poker world knows that, but the public doesn't know that. And so they're still confused. Is Phil a jerk? Well, most of them think no by now, but I mean, so then when you see me live on ESPN and Daniel's hammering me and I'm laughing at myself, I think it's pretty cool.
And that mystery is kind of great. It's all part of the character development, right? So I also wanted to talk about YouStake, right? Because I know you are involved with YouStake. They just completely rebranded their site. I'm a user of YouStake, played my first 10K ever, the Aria Poker Classic, because of 32 backers on YouStake. Phil, you and I cashed in the same tournament. It was a cool moment. You brought back ROI for backers in that tournament. So talk to everybody about your passion for YouStake and how you're helping that organization.
Well, I mean, YouStake is a great. I'm not on the advisory board, but I'm an investor. Yeah. And we took less points than we were offered, which I've never done before. But my agent's like, should we take this or this? He's like, we both felt like we should take less because we can't dedicate full time to it. We thought if we take a bigger percentage, then we'd have to do more. Right. But I will say this, because I don't want to exaggerate, I put 10 packages on YouStake. I have won 8 times and broke. The one time I lost a little, I ate it myself. I didn't even charge the guy. So that was a break even. So I have 8 wins and 1 loss and 1 break even on YouStake. I've made the customers $100,000, at YouStake whenever I sell a piece. Why do I sell a piece at YouStake? All right, well, the bad part is I'm selling it because just for YouStake and the customers. And so one, it's not bad, but the one negative is I'm missing out on some money that I would be making myself. But is that really true?
Right.
No, because if I know I have 400 YouStake people and I've had 400 or 500 people on me at once, I know with all those people, I can't let them down. Right. And so me making them 100,000 has maybe made me an extra 300,000 or 400,000 because I'm trying harder for them.
Right.
There is something there. When 400 people are depending on you, regular, normal people, not, I'm a regular, normal person in a lot of ways too, but it's kind of nice to be able to bring money in for them. And if I sound too cocky, I apologize, but YouStake.com has been just absolutely a lot of fun for me. I'm going to be filming soon, and I'm going to probably sell $50,000 worth to YouStake. And, that gives me extra motivation to win.
I love it. Well, I think it comes from a really good place. It makes you feel good that you can bring ROI back to the people that put their trust in you.
Yes.
I mean, look, I'm not Phil Hellmuth, right? I don't have the tournament history you do, but just the 32 people that joined Team Faded Spade, and I was able to bring money back to them in a small way. Like, that felt so good, right? So, I mean, for you got hundreds and thousands of people. So I think it comes from a really good place. And
I've made thousands of people over $100,000. And so that feels really good. You're right. I mean, the negative is so small. Oh, I'm not getting all the money myself. Yeah. Well, guess what? You might not have played that good.
Right. and you're building the brand and you're getting yourself out there so good. Well, I wanted to make sure we
Oh, by the way, so last time I did that, Tom, I gave every single investor a 1-month subscription to PokerGo to watch me play.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah. And I did that out of my own pocket. I paid for that.
That's amazing.
And so, I thought it was pretty cool because now you're promoting YouStake and now you're promoting PokerGo, which, I mean, come on, there's some really, really great stuff on PokerGo. I mean, watching champions play for millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands and celebrities. I had Draymond Green playing on PokerGo. People should go back and watch that one.
I saw that.
That was a pretty cool moment.
With Faded Spade cards. I mean, come on. Does it get any better than that?
Promote.
Damn right. All right. So as we wrap this thing up, Phil, I've had a great time, man. I think that our viewers and listeners are going to get a lot out of this. I really do. I'm going to end it with 2 questions for you. Okay.
Wait, one more quick promote.
Go ahead.
So I did join the advisory board for Muzik headphones, Muzik.
Okay.
Then afterwards, we raised $70 million from Michael Jordan and the billionaire behind Gucci.
Yep.
I'm so bad with names,
Sorry.
but it felt really good to be a part of that. And here's the black headphones. And now we have the version we've just announced that have the camera right here, and you can move the camera up and down. So I can be going like this, playing poker. You can see my hole cards and see everything I can see from my perspective.
You're kidding.
We're doing it with woodworkers. I brought Tony Robbins to Muzik, and so you can see stuff from his perspective. It's very, very cool, the Muzik headphones. That one's taking off extraordinarily well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get a valuation at $500 million within the next year.
You know, we'll put links for all this too in the YouTube summary and also in our podcast summary. We're getting a few thousand views per video, Phil, but we just started this thing, right? And no doubt with your promotion, I'm sure we'll get more. But okay, great. So let's finish on this, Phil. And I need to pick myself. It's Muzik, Muzik.
Muzik.
Muzik. Well, I was way off. I'm going to edit that out. Muzik.
And they're the best headphones ever made. I can rip this pad off and put on a new one. I mean, if I want, I'll have them on. You don't understand. The tech is the best ever made. This guy's a tech genius, Jason Hardy. If I want music up, if I want volume up, I just swipe up twice.
So cool.
Volume down. Next song, last song. I can even say, call my wife. My phone can be 50 yards away, 30 yards away, and it'll call my wife. These are the cutting edge tech, and they're less than some of the other premium $100 less than the best Beats.
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil, I just put a YouStake campaign out for WPT 5 Diamond. So if and when it completes, I will buy some Muzik headphones and I'll wear them during play. All right. So, Phil, along this whole journey you've had, man, right? The poker success, the business success, you know, what is like one thing that stands out that you've learned about yourself?
Well, you know, I mean, the one thing that I'm famous for in the poker world is perfect ethics and honor.
Yep.
And I've been able to live that way. I mean, people might say, oh, well, Phil, you haven't been broke. You haven't been tested. I've been low on money. I'm very proud of myself, very proud of my ethics. I mean, I'm very proud, and Sean can laugh at this because he knows what's coming probably if he was at the roast. I always say this, I've never cheated on my wife.
Right.
And they make fun of the fact that I say that a lot. But to me, that's a big thing.
It is.
Because I have actresses and models and famous girls after me all the time, beautiful women all the time. I'm very proud of that. And so, you know, what I've learned about myself the most is character. Also, I'm kind of surprised that the young founders, these young CEOs who are geniuses, are coming to me for advice. And I still haven't reconciled with that, but it makes me feel like, hey, maybe I know something about business.
Yeah. And I think one thing I took from reading your book too is, and I'll repeat it, we said it earlier, it means a lot to you to make a difference. It means a lot for you to make a difference in the world or through the community or through people that interact with you. And I think it's a driving force for you. And it's something people should know. And I think that, I think it's a phenomenal trait, Phil. I mean, a lot of people do it for other reasons. And I know the reason, and the reasons you do what you do is from a genuine place. So last thing, Phil, for those aspiring entrepreneurs, for those aspiring poker players, for those people who are trying to build their business or have a vision for their life, and they're on that path, what is the single most important piece of advice you'd give them for their journey?
For poker, money management,
okay,
but also for business, money management.
Okay.
Money management is so underestimated. I mean, let's just, if you have poker skills of 100 and money management of 10, you are going to be in and out of money. You're going to be worried about paying the bills, right? But if you have, you know, poker skills of 10 and money management of 100, you're always going to be able to pay your bills, right? Maybe you need poker, maybe you need 20. But the point is, money management is so much more important than skill. And, and being able to pay your bills on time is huge. Really, 90% of the world or more is living paycheck to paycheck. And for poker players, that can be brutal.
Right.
You owe whatever, $2,000 for rent at the end of the month. You have a $3,000 bankroll. It can be a struggle, man. I mean, it's not easy. And, and so I think money management is huge. I think that for years and years and years, people made fun of me because I wouldn't take big chances. I'll never forget when I had to swallow my ego back in 2002. I walked into, or call it 2005, I walked into the Commerce Casino, and I didn't sit down at the 1,000, 2,000 game, and I didn't sit down at the 500 and 1,000. I didn't sit down, and the whole room's watching me because I'm tall and I'm Phil Hellmuth, controversial. And I went and I sat down in the 100, 200 game, the 153 game, and I could just see everybody talking about, oh, Phil must be broke. No, I probably have more money than everybody in that room. On paper, at that point, maybe. I was probably worth exactly $1 million at that point. But I had to swallow my ego. And instead of trying to borrow money, I did the smart thing. And I'm about to play, Sean, in a 500 and 1,000 blind game live on Poker Go. And I'm going to risk 300,000, but I've won a lot of money lately, millions, but I'm really hesitating. I don't think I'm going to risk 300,000 of my own money. Yeah. And so people made fun of that in the past. Oh. And, but I think now somebody like Mike the Mouth Mattisau is like, I used to laugh at you and your money management skills, and now I follow you.
Yeah.
You have to be able to take losses. So money management is the top of the top, and you have to be able to swallow your ego and go play the 153. That's what I did.
Or if you're me, go play the 2-5. Yes. or Sean the 1-3. Actually, Sean, just don't play poker. It'll be better for you overall. All right, Phil. Listen, man. Look, you took an hour and a half to spend time with us to share your business journey on the Faded Spade podcast. And this is coming from somebody who spends time on the Anderson Cooper show. So thank you for all the support you have for Faded Spade. Thanks for taking the time out to share this journey. I know for the people that watch it, it'll be very helpful. Okay, so Sean, what a good hour with Phil, man. I mean, I don't know about you, but I didn't know 80, 90% of that stuff. I mean, the work he does in the advisory boards and the intentionality behind building his personal brand, right? And the books he's written. And I mean, just all around, a lot of surprising information to me about his entrepreneurial and business game. I knew it was pretty prolific. I knew that he had a lot of connections and he was a good businessman, but I didn't know it went that deep.
Yeah. The guy is definitely in our world. He's the biggest hustler I've ever seen. Yeah. And I don't mean hustler in a bad way. I just mean he hustles. He grinds. He literally sells that Phil Hellmuth brand like no other. And it's he does seem to have his, a little bit in each little jar across the board from businesses within the poker industry and outside of it. Yeah. This guy does TV commercials. He's been in movies. He's been in, like Showtime and HBO shows and stuff like that. Anytime there's like a poker scene or something like that, he's done it all. And this guy is, I hope people got to see the other side of Phil Hellmuth and realize he's more than just the guy on the felt.
He's a definite promoter. I loved it when he was like, promote, right? And then at the same time, though, he's very self-aware, right? And his story about self-esteem growing up and then, experiencing all the success and his ego and him fighting to keep his ego in check. But, deep down, I think what I've learned, especially after now reading completely #positivity and this time with him, is he's a pretty genuine guy. And I think one of his biggest drivers that maybe people don't know is just he has this drive to make a difference, a positive difference in people's lives, right? And that's completely different than what you might see on the felt or the highlights people, show from the felt when he's playing poker. But he's got this deep kind of like desire to say, look, I want to influence people in a positive way in my life. And if I can do that, I'm going to. And it comes from a good place. And I think that's something that I learned and hopefully a lot of other people took away too,
And, it kind of ties back to our podcast as a whole, like what we are trying to do with this. When we set out to do this, we said, even if we reach one person and that one person gets a positive message from us or one of our guests, and it inspires them to do whatever they need to do in their life, whether it be poker, bankroll management, family stuff, anything that can turn into a positive note for them. Even if we reach just one person, that's great. And I think I really do believe at one point in his life, Hellmuth thought the same thing. Hey, let me reach one person. And obviously the scope of who he's reached now is in the millions. So he's a globally recognized brand. So it's really good to work with guys like that. And shout out, we didn't mention her on his podcast, but shout out real quick to the woman that holds that household together. Kathy I've met Kathy. I actually met Kathy at Hellmuth's roast, and you can just tell who keeps that household in check. And Phil's not shy to say it either. He's not shy. He owes a lot of his focus and ability to do what he does on a daily basis to Kathy. So
I think it's a good point.
Yeah,
really
we all talk about, yourself, me. A lot of people always talk about there's always a good woman in the background. You and I are both blessed to have that, and Phil as well. So
and I know, like, we were short on time, right? And one of my next questions coming up was, who does he thank for support? And there's no doubt in my mind he would have answered that the same way. No doubt in my mind. So Phil, we want to say thanks for joining the podcast and the season-ending podcast. So let's spend a couple more minutes, Sean, just wrapping up the season, man. From the time I texted you a few months ago and said, hey, Sean, I'm going to start a podcast about business and industry leadership and entrepreneurial journeys, and I want it to be positive and for people to watch it and listen to it. And brother, I think you'd be the best co-host out there. Let's do it. From that time that we sent that text and had that conversation to now, did it meet your expectations, or you're like, wow, what have we done in 10 or 11 episodes? So, like, what's going through your mind, man?
I know you guys watch when we're doing this, and I take a lot of notes on our guests, and I will go over all these notes and maybe do like a written season 1 summaries. But I the funny thing is, we talk about reaching that one person, and hopefully they can reach someone else. Yeah. But this podcast reached me. I'm going to be honest, because in the beginning, I'll tell you, and this is the clip it out part right here. Everybody talks about doing a new project, a new endeavor, whatever they want to do in their life. And they might even get to the R&D stage where they're doing all their research and they're developing their product. But what it comes down to is you just got to do it. You just got to do it. Yeah. Research and development can only go so far. You need implementation. And when we started this, when you came to me 4 months ago and said, hey, we're going to do a podcast, I'm not going to lie, I kind of did one of these. You didn't see that look, but I did one of those. Like, is this guy crazy? We both have
so nice much going on, right?
and so much on our plate and everything. Is this guy nuts? And fast forward to today, and I got to thank you, Tom, because you put in the majority of the work. I'm kind of the color funny man over here. So I try to be the co-host with the most. But thank you to you, Tom, because you kind of not only had this vision of doing this, but you pushed me to do this. You pushed me into that implementation stage. And now I'm a believer behind it. I listen and watch podcasts all the time. I get inspired. Maybe I have a story. Maybe you have a story. Maybe even more so, the people we bring on have a story that will touch someone. So thank you, Tom. And
hell yeah, man. Well, thanks for doing it.
This is a blast. I'm having
fun. It's fun, dude. Thanks for doing it. Like, I couldn't imagine doing it, number one, on my own, right? And when I went through this list in my head of people that could co-host with me, I immediately, you jumped to the top, and I said, Devin, what do you think about that? And she's like, oh my God, you two. She's like, you two are gonna love it. People are gonna enjoy coming on the show, and it's been awesome, Sean. And look, you're just spending your time doing this. You're not getting paid to do this. You're doing this because you want to do it, and that means a lot to me too, man. It's It's about friendship, and it's about doing something we believe in. So I want to send some gratitude to our guests. First guest, Jamie Kerstetter. What a story, from law to poker. If you haven't watched or listened to that, listen to that. She's one of my favorite people in poker in the industry that I've got to know. Berkey. I mean, what can you say about Berkey? The guy's become an influencer and authority. He's just a stud with software Y training. We had Nimi on, right? Nimi talking all about Favorable and his whole path for vlogging. Then Lynn came on the show, right? You got to tell your fun story. You got to nerd out like I nerded out with Phil, when Lynn came on the show, and all the businesses she's involved in. And again, people just don't know this stuff, right? And then we had Joe Stapleton to come talk about his comedic journey. And I mean, you and I laughed, I think, more on that podcast than we've laughed in any of our intros or outros. It was hilarious, but also great nuggets of information, right? And then you went on like a 2 or 3 week hiatus. You felt like you had to go on vacation or something, right? And then work got stressful, and I was able to do some podcasts with Joey Ingram and got really deep with Joey about his, not just like his business story, but his life story and his self-awareness and growth. And then all of a sudden, Phil Galfond and I connected, and it was like, let's get on the podcast and talk about his entrepreneurial journey with Run It Once. And then you had this great idea, let's do a roundtable. Let's do an industry roundtable on the topic of reentry. And all of a sudden, Savage and Berkey and Jeremy Smith from HPT, we do this, what the most viewed, like over 2,500 views on YouTube. I'm not sure about the podcast outlets audio, but of just an industry discussion about roundtables. And then to finish it off with Phil, who really was my first poker hero, to nerd out some more, read his book, watched his video and tournament strategy. To think back on that, I have so much gratitude for these guests to come on, because people wouldn't know what the Faded Spade podcast is outside of the Faded Spade cards if these guests didn't take the time to come on and share their story. So just a lot of gratitude there. And I don't mean to be long-winded, but I think season 2 is going to be awesome. I think we're going to continue to have some players and notable people come on to share their stories. But, Sean, I want to get into the things that you were talking about, bringing on industry leaders, poker room operators, folks that have similar roles to you to share their stories. And then I think more of these roundtables on topics important to the industry is something that we should definitely do. You know what I mean?
100%. There's a lot of people in this industry that work behind the scenes that are vital to the operation of these card rooms, setting up these big, huge tournaments, and just drawing in thousands upon tens of thousands of people into their casinos every year. And some of them are private individuals. I know some of them personally, and they're very private, but some of them, they'd love to come on and give their story. And, as a guy who's been in operations pretty much my whole journey in poker, I like to showcase those people. And, I don't know if blessed is the right word. I think it's more luck that I ended up in a place that allows me to have a platform, the Poker Boss. Right. Here in Las Vegas, the center of the poker universe. So I have, a platform to be able to talk and get out there on social media and do fun things like this. But there's so many people that are just the lifeblood of our industry. And I can't wait to have them on. And I also can't wait to have maybe some high profile, maybe even celebrities, movie stars. Who knows? I'm ready to drop some lines. Let's go.
I've got some people lined up in the sports entertainment industry, so we'll talk more about that. But look, to all the viewers and listeners that have watched, and we've seen steady growth, or listened, and we've seen steady growth, from the start to now. We send our thanks. We hope it's added value. Stay tuned for season 2 of the Faded Spade podcast. You can find us on the brand new YouTube channel, youtube.com/Faded Spade, across a variety of audio podcast platforms. Doesn't matter if it's Apple, Spotify, Google Play, you name it, we're on it. And again, thanks for tuning in. We hope that season 2 coming up provides the same type of value that we hear this season did too. So signing off for the year, Sean, I'll see you next week in Vegas. Time for the World Poker Tour 5 Diamond. We'll see if we can't get lucky and bink that thing. And I know we're going to have some fun while I'm out there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Signing off, season 1, ending with the Phil Hellmuth entrepreneurial and business journey on the Faded Spade Podcast. We'll see you in 2020.
The Faded Spade Podcast is sponsored by Duck Productions. Contact them for all of your podcast editing needs at randy@duckduckpro.com.